big fan of his work, from not only behind the mic, from the days when he was coaching my favorite basketball team. Jeff Van Gundy back here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Jeff?
Good, Rich. You shouldn't feel so bad about the Yankees.
Why is that?
Losing to a superior team in the Astros. You guys gave it a good shot. So,
you know what?
Feel good about the year you had.
No, I do.
What I mean?
No, I know, and I feel that way. 100-win season, and I just love watching some of these guys make something of themselves, whether it was expected of them or not. So you are right, Jeff. Do you have?
And my worst day as a sports fan.
Yes,
I still remember it. My birthday in 1973. UCLA's 88-game winning streak came to a halt at Notre Dame. They went on an 11-0 run, I think, at the end to beat Bill Walton. That was like the worst.
Why was that so bad for you? I guess you were just
because I was such a UCLA fan, and it was on tape delay, so they were up like 8 or 9, 10 with like 3 to go without a shot clock. UCLA is never losing this game, and I knew they lost before, but I didn't believe it when I was watching it on replay. I thought I had misheard it, and then it ruined my birthday. So it was like my 12th birthday. It was a bad day.
Well, what did you love about UCLA so much, Jeff? Like what spoke to you about that?
We won every game. That's what. Like I jumped on the bandwagon in California. I was in Northern California at the time growing up.
Uh-huh.
I jumped on the bandwagon with UCLA. So it was very simple. And you only remember back then there was no TV except on like local teams, so that's the only games we got was UCLA. It was Dick Enberg calling the games.
Of course it was. I mean, it was amazing here in Southern California with Dick Enberg and obviously Vince Scully and just some of the legendary voices calling games here in Southern California. Did you ever come across with paths with John Wooden, Jeff? Did you ever meet him?
I was coaching. I never met him, but I was coaching the Knicks in the playoffs, and Walton was doing one of our games, and somehow it came up I was a UCLA fan, and so he called, and this was post-Ewing, so we were playing Sprewell and Houston were our best players.
Right.
And so we were posting them up a lot. So anyway, Bill Walton, this was right before the game, like an hour and a half before the game, calls Coach Wooden up. I get on the phone with him. I'm like fawning about him, and he goes, "You know what? I'd rather see Houston and Sprewell face the basket more instead of play with their back to the basket." So I went in and I said, "Hey guys, Coach Wooden said he'd like you guys to play with so face up a little bit more tonight so we can win this game." Yeah. So that was my only time I ever got a chance to talk to him.
Wow, geez. So did you win that game that night? Did they face up more based on your?
I have no idea, but I was like in awe.
That's amazing.
First of all, the audacity of Walton to call up John Wooden and to think that John Wooden was actually watching our games.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
Yeah, that was humbling, to say the least.
Jeff Van Gundy here on the Rich Eisen Show. Okay, so most wide-open season that you've seen in the NBA since when, would you say, going into this campaign that starts tomorrow, Jeff?
Well, I think, obviously pre-Warriors, once they had it rolling. But even back then, there's always been favorites. I just don't see, I don't have a good feel on who I would say the favorite would be. I know everybody's saying, the Los Angeles teams, and maybe you feel like it's Milwaukee because most likely they'll be the top seed, or even you can make a case for Philadelphia. But I'm really interested. I'm really interested in who makes the playoffs because I think particularly in the Western Conference, injury can really determine whether you make it or don't, what seed you get, home court advantage or not. So I'm interested to see how it plays out. I'm also interested to see which teams try to have a really good regular season or which teams are trying to pace their players throughout the regular season.
Are you going load management on me there, Jeff? Is that what that was right there?
Yeah, I just don't like it because I just hate that term. We've tried to make load management seem like there's some science behind it.
That's right.
There's not. It's all guessing. If there was science and we could prevent injuries, then we wouldn't see all the injuries we see in sports. So, yeah, I don't like to give load management any credence at all.
Jeff Van Gundy here on the Rich Eisen Show. And the Lakers here in Los Angeles, obviously, have all the eyes on them for all the obvious reasons. How is it going to work, however? Is there a concern for you in the Vogel-Jason Kidd scenario that has been put together by the front office, where Vogel's the head coach and Kidd is the assistant that a lot of people assume is the choice of LeBron, and Vogel's the choice of, say, Phil Jackson in the ear of the front office? What do you say to that, Jeff Van Gundy?
Well, I don't know what their dynamic is because I don't know what Jason Kidd's thinking. But I think Jason Kidd is he was a very good head coach at multiple spots. He's smart. I thought his teams played tough. But anybody underestimating Frank Vogel and his skill with people, number one, and coaching acumen, number two, they would be underestimating him greatly. This is a guy at Indiana who did a magnificent job, and the only thing that stopped them from getting to the finals was they kept running into LeBron James in Miami. Then he went to Orlando, and they were trying to rebuild, so they lost a lot. But I thought it was an inspired choice to pick him with the Lakers. I think he's going to work well with their roster. I have no worries about their roster or Frank Vogel at all.
So, and no worries about any dynamic that might be playing out on the bench?
I'd be very surprised because I think as a former head coach, Jason Kidd understands to have success, you have to play your role. And as an assistant coach, that means you have to, at times, make suggestions that you think strongly about that will not get adapted. The head coach doesn't agree. And I think he probably went through that with his own assistant coaches, both in Brooklyn and Milwaukee, and I think he understands his role and his place. I'd be surprised if there's any problems.
Jeff Van Gundy here on the Rich Eisen Show. And what do you think's going through Steve Kerr's mind as he gets started for this season?
I think probably in some ways Steve is really excited about the year. It's different. The dynamic's different. The expectations are different. I'm sure he's excited about teaching so many young guys, being on the practice floor more. I think Curry's going to have an MVP season. But I think, when all you've done is win and win big, it's going to be obviously more of a struggle to win, more of a struggle to qualify for the playoffs. And, the Western Conference is hard. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be a challenge. But I think Steve is a terrific, terrific coach. I got to work with him in the World Cup this summer. I saw firsthand how good he was. So I have no doubts that they'll play very, very well. And Curry could have an MVP season. And yet it could still be a struggle to make the playoffs or advance in the playoffs.
And in terms of just teams that have put together rosters to try and win a championship, Houston, obviously. We saw what the Lakers and Clippers have done. The Sixers, a lot of people like what they have done. Which do you think is the biggest coaching challenge to get together and get everybody on the same page in time to make a push? What's the biggest challenge, do you think, for a coach that has this now on their plate?
I think Philadelphia is going to be a challenge. I think Brett Brown, all he's had there is huge challenges. He's got a point guard who's not a range shooter in Simmons. They're a huge team. Their depth has been diminished. They don't have a lot of shooting. Horford is going to play at the power forward, but is truly an NBA center. The health issues of Embiid. So I think there's so many questions, such roster turnover. Not sure necessarily that the roster fits great together, but they are certainly talented. I think that is the team that I'm most interested in watching throughout the season.
Tell me about this Golisano Training Center opening at Nazareth College, Jeff. I know you're very involved with the Special Olympics New York and in this particular facility. What's going on up there back in my own home
today
state?
They opened up. Tom Golisano and his foundation were the lead donor to this Golisano Training Center at Nazareth College, which is where I went and graduated from college. And it's a spectacular field house that's going to both benefit the student-athletes at Nazareth College, but more importantly, Rich, the Special Olympic athletes. Our students here at Nazareth in the Health and Human Services major are going to be working directly with the Special Olympic athletes. And it's a truly spectacular building, but more so, it's a spectacular opportunity for the athletes, both our student athletes at Nazareth and the Special Olympic athletes, to get the training they so richly deserve. And, this is a very inclusive and cooperative venture between the Golisano Foundation, Nazareth College, and Special Olympics of New York. And we couldn't be more proud to be here for the opening of the building today and see the possibilities that can happen. And I would, all your listeners, if they want to see what great things are happening with Special Olympics, just go to jointherevolution.org.
That's jointherevolution.org. Congratulations on being part of that and going back to the spot that's meant so much to you and being part of something that's so remarkable, Jeff. That must be pretty neat.
Yeah, I went to 4 colleges, Rich, and I finally I was like one of those perpetually finding myself type of guys.
Sure.
So I found my home. I don't know about you, but I did college in 5 years. I don't know about you, Rich. You probably did it in 4.
Yeah, I did it in 4. But so you were a journeyman? Is that what you're saying? You were a journeyman at going to school? Is that what you're saying, Jeff?
What do they call that back in the day with my age? Finding yourself? I was trying to find myself. And my dad, going into the 5th year, said, I hope you finally found yourself because this is the last year you're on the payroll in my house. So,
Well, it's too bad if you were finding yourself, you didn't cross paths with Wooden and Walton then, Jeff, not till later in life.
Exactly.
That'd have been very, very helpful. Hey, Jeff, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. I always enjoy our chats. We'll chat throughout the season and enjoy that grind for you. You got it. That's Jeff Van Gundy here on The Rich Eisen Show.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live or download the Rich Eisen Show app.